All right, guys, so the house looks a little bit different. The demo portion of the drywall installation is all gone out of the house. Next, we're gonna be ripping up our hardwood floors, and I'm gonna show you guys the entire process of how to do that, because there's essentially two reasons why you would do it. You wanna salvage them, if you want to reuse them or resell them, do something else with them, and you don't wanna break them all up. And the other is just to rip them up and get them out of your house because you're installing tile, or in our case, we are putting new hardwood floors and we can't go right over these. I will explain all those reasons why in this video, and also along the way, I'm gonna give you a couple of tips and tricks to make this process easier because it is labor intensive, but don't worry, you can totally do it. We're gonna be doing this today, and hopefully we'll get our living room and kitchen and dining room all ripped out in one day. So let's get started, and welcome to the Komar Project.
No, no.
Honey, so what do you think of the house so far, honey?
Oh, it's got a little bit of work to do.
Needs a little love. All right, so we're gonna start with the process that we use to remove the flooring and then throw it out. And the first thing we need to do is cut the floor into 2 to 3 foot wide strips. Your typical hardwood flooring is going to be 3/4 of an inch thick, and I needed to set the circular saw to that height. I want to set my blade exactly to that 3/4 inch mark, because if I don't, I'm going to end up cutting through my subfloor. And the best way of doing that is just laying one of your planks on the ground and then dropping the blade all the way to the floor before locking it in. Now you can cut your flooring as wide or as narrow as you want, but I found that the sweet spot is about 3 feet, which will have 2 to 3 nails when you pull each plank up, and it's fairly easy to pull them up at that point. All right, and one of the tools that you definitely want for this is this gooseneck wrecking bar. It's got a 90-degree angle, and it'll allow you to grab behind the flooring and actually pull it up. Plus, this is a great tool for when you're removing nails, which we're gonna talk about a little bit later. Started, we didn't know exactly where our tongue and groove side was, so we are pulling from our groove side, and the tongue is sitting in here. While we're pulling, we're getting a lot of nails through, so we're gonna start from the other end and see if that works a little bit better. And because we're gonna be throwing a majority of the flooring out, it doesn't matter where you start or what side you pull up on. For repurposing them, it does matter, but for now, we're just gonna be demoing this floor, and we'll talk about the repurposing process a little bit later. All right, so we started from the groove side, now we're on the tongue side, and it's actually worse. So we're gonna go back to the groove side because we have nails. My buddy did it a couple of months ago. He had staples, and it worked on the tongue side for him. So we're gonna go back to the groove. After getting a few rows started with the little pry bar, we were able to get behind the flooring and use the big 42-inch pry bar and go to town. And it was pretty amazing how easily they were popping up. With staples, it's a little bit more work, but with nails, they just pop right up. But that doesn't mean that installing with nails is incorrect. You just want to use nails called cleats that are barbed and have an L-shaped head. They've been used for generations, and they hold just as well as staples. And then you can get one of these pullers, or you can get yourself a grant. They're limited edition. KomarProject.com. All right, one thing you have to be careful about is making sure you have good gloves. So hold on. These gloves, they have a cushiony pad on the inside, because when you're pushing that pry bar, you're actually gonna get a blister. And I switched gloves, so there's a blister already, and we've only been going at it for a couple of hours. Even if you stick something in your gloves, cushion that area, because you're constantly pounding it up against that crowbar. And it's not fun. Not fun at all. On day one, my friend G-Mac Makes came by and that process went super fast. We were able to get the entire living room, dining room, and kitchen pulled up. Now on day two, I was by myself and had the hallways to remove. And in a hallway, you may not be able to get behind the flooring to get leverage with the pry bar because of a wall, but you can still pry up on them from the side as long as you can cut the sections into about 2-foot sections. The smaller, the better. It really helped them to pop up easier. It just made the cleanup a little bit longer, but eventually I was able to get all of the flooring from the first floor out with the exception of our guest bedroom. All right, guys, so that's pretty much it if you guys are just removing them just to throw it away. It's a fairly labor-intensive process, but it goes really, really quickly. Next, I'm gonna show you guys the method that I use for trying to repurpose as much as we possibly can. And typically when we do this, we can get about 70–80%. So let's do that. So this is the bedroom I was talking about earlier, and we're gonna try to keep all the flooring in this room to use for future projects. I first started by removing the baseboard and baseboard from the wall. And depending if your floor was put before or after drywall, you may run into a situation where that drywall sits over the flooring planks, which can make it a little bit harder to remove in one piece. So you will need to either cut that drywall out a bit, or you can score along the wall to separate those planks. And that's exactly what I'm doing. I'm gonna cut the perimeter of the room as close as I can to the wall with my saw set at 3/4 of an inch. Then I grabbed my multi-tool and started cutting the first row. Now that first row I tried to save, but honestly it's just much easier to rip it out and not count on those first couple of rows. It's more stress than anything else trying to get those out in one piece. But mostly everything after that, if I take my time, it will be salvageable. So the trick to this is going slowly and prying up on one end of the plank and tapping it gently away from the floor on the tongue side. If you damage the tongue side, it's okay because it gets hidden by the groove. But if you damage the groove side, it will show up in your final installation, so you want to try to stay away from that. As long as you get a clean topside edge of the plank without any chips, it will be able to be reused in the future. And now it's just rinse and repeat till the entire floor is removed. And some of those areas you can still use that large pry bar, especially where you have the smaller pieces. They will typically pop up without any damage. And honestly, it takes a little bit of experimenting with each floor just to figure out what works best. But after you get a few rows out, you'll be able to gauge what works best for your flooring and how to get it out without damaging it. All right, guys, so the flooring's pretty much all removed. There's a small little section by the front. That'll take me about an hour to handle. But next, I have to remove all of these nails throughout this entire house. And let me show you guys, there's quite a lot of them, right? And let's call it there's about 10 nails per square foot, give or take. Down on the first floor, we have 1,900 square feet of flooring. That's 19,000 nails. Holy cow. Whew. That's gonna take a while. But yeah, there's only one thing we can do. Just get it on. That gooseneck pry bar works great for removing the majority of the nails because you don't have to bend down, but it won't get all of them, especially the ones around the walls where they were installed with trim nails. For those, I used a pair of pliers and a good old hammer, and that worked really well. But now we have to remove the nails from the ones that I'm going to be keeping, and the air locker gun is the best thing ever designed for removing nails. It works by punching out a little rod that forces the nail through the wood, and I've used this thing on pallets, framing, and it pretty much can handle any kind of nail, even bent ones. If you have projects where you have to remove nails, this tool is definitely worth it. I think it's like 50 bucks on Amazon right now, and I'm gonna have it linked down below in the description along with all the other tools that I used in this project. So that's it. All of our flooring in the house is entirely gone. It took us about 2 days, but we were able to get 1,500 square foot of this flooring completely out. And I'm keeping about 500 feet of it so that we can repurpose it and use it on some accent walls, maybe on our kitchen island. One thing you do have to remember if you are putting it back down as flooring is that you're gonna have to refinish that surface. So you're gonna have to sand it down and put a couple coats of polyurethane over it, because when this is installed originally, it's all finished as one piece when it originally gets installed. And by removing it, that clear coat finish can be chipped. Not the stain, the clear coat finish, you can chip it from the edges. So just remember, if you're laying it down again, you will have to recoat it. Unless you have pre-engineered flooring, which is individually pre-finished. So hopefully you guys got something out of this video. For us next in the renovation, we're gonna be removing load-bearing walls in the kitchen to open up this floor plan. So we have some really big LVL beams that we have to install, and that's gonna be a really cool process. So make sure you guys are following along by hitting that subscribe and the bell notification. Thank you so much for joining me on this experience. I'll see you guys next time.
Hi, honey.
You ready to work?
No,
Why not?
because I'm old, fat, and tired.
You ready to work?
No, for the same reasons.
Where's my good hammer?
He doesn't know where anything's at. He doesn't. It's all over the house. It's in piles of insulation. It's in cedar. It's Lord only knows.